As a community, we come together because our goal is the same, which is to improve the lives of others. I think what makes our education stand out is that, we don't really represent ourselves or our own taste level when we put education out for the people. We want them to develop as their own style, own flavor. We're interested in helping you be the hairdresser that you are and improve in the way that you'd like to improve. We're just going to provide content and material to help you get there. What's up, guys? This is Jesse Linares, back with you again from Nashville, Tennessee. Thanks for joining us. Thank you for all of your amazing participation in our segments so far. Hopefully this next one's going to be a really good one for you. I've got some PSAs I'm just going to burn through while we wait for everyone to join us online here. Samvia.com. If you don't know it already, we're running a pretty awesome store-wide sale, 40% off everything. 10% of all sales will be going to PBA's COVID-19 relief fund as well. So we know Andrew said earlier, it's kind of a touchy thing to talk about sales at a time like this, but if you are going to buy something, and we have had a lot of people that have, then just know that 10% of your contribution is going to be going towards PBA's COVID-19 relief fund. Pivot Point, one of our favorite sponsors, one of our friends. They're giving us so much this weekend, and we want to help them give you guys something too. They're doing 15% off all mannequin heads, which is substantial, and then 20% off tripods as well. The tripods are amazing. I'll be giving one away in my last segment today, so please join us, and I'll give you a little more hype on that. I haven't done this yet this weekend, but I wanted to give a shout out to all of our Samvia partner schools and any hair schools that may be joining us for this. All of this information will be back out there on Facebook and YouTube for you guys to watch later. So all you cosmetology instructors, when you're having that day when you just have had enough and you don't want to do anything, let us entertain them for you. Play one of our videos, and we'll take care of the kids for at least 45 minutes per segment. Thank you to Redken for helping us out this weekend. In my segment today, we'll be giving away Redken's new Extreme Bleach Recovery range, all of them, and they are pretty amazing. Like I said, I've been pampering the mannequins. I've been using my models, if you will, for this weekend, and their hair feels so silky. I love it. So we have a lot going on. If you've been having a great time with the information that you've been getting this weekend, if you'd like to do it a little more intimately, one-on-one, then know that you can bring us into the salon for your team, or if you love this format, we'd be willing to work with you on any topic that you have in mind in some one-on-one sessions. We call it Artist Studio Live. You can bring us to you, but if you like, you can sit where you are. I'll stay where I am, and then we will communicate together and get some education done. So thank you guys so much for being with us today. And here's what we're going to be doing during this segment. Taking a look at a classic that seems to be having a little bit of a renaissance now, which is the one-length bob. This is one of the first haircuts that we learn as cosmetologists, and as I can say, as a working hairdresser 16 years into the game, still one of the most difficult haircuts that I have pulling off. So we're going to take a look at some ways that we can get to it. We're going to go in depth into our foundational breakdown. To be truthful, I was kind of planning to have that pre-section because I'm a little bit of a neurotic freak out when I section. Sometimes it takes a minute, but then I was watching Andrew's segment earlier, and he was like, Jesse's going to give you guys an in-depth look at a foundational breakdown. So now, thanks to Andrew, you will have to watch me section that. I'll do it good for you, I promise. So the French bob.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Oh, now do the thing where you like make it big. He can do this thing where he like oppresses me, and he comes in like, yeah, and I get really small, and I'm like, don't hurt me, Andrew. Yeah, or something like that. I was hoping I could do something that would force him to do it, but then we just blew the cool surprise. Sorry about that, everybody. Okay, let's take a look at this haircut today. The first thing we're going to do is examine what's in it for you, as we like to say. Why would you want to watch me cut this for you? So one thing I've noticed when I cut the French bob, or the French bob is what they call when the bob is cleanly cut off, generally around the jaw somewhere. On some of the classic shapes, you'd even see a little bit of that nape hanging out back there, like Louise Brooks back in the day. And then now I think the term French bob is sort of being used in a categorical way to talk about a new, just clean off the bottom bob that is definitely well off the shoulders, but doesn't have that same textured look that we were used to seeing with the lob. So, you know, evolution of the lob for you if you didn't want to get a shag. So we're seeing a lot more of these cuts come down the pipe. What's cool about them is that you get to have a little bit of fun depending on where you put the parting. That it's a one-length cut, but if the guest always parts their hair on a certain side, then you're going to get a little bit of asymmetry. And you can see as I throw that forward a little bit that it gets a little longer on the one side and gives you that little bit of drama right there. A fun shape to play with. Issues that I've had with cutting this shape in the past is that, you know, we let all of the hair down in these really clean horizontal sections and we cut that line right there. But if you get off in the tiniest bit, after the blowout, you're going to get a lot of choppy unevenness down there. So I was looking for a way that we could present this today and how we could avoid having to deal with the aftercut, as I call it. You know, we do the cut, we cut those clean lines, they look amazing wet, we blow it off, and then they're maybe a little stippity-steppity off. And so we're going to look at something that Sammy lit me up for yesterday with his zigzag partings. Back in the day, I used to use zigzag partings all the time. Actually, once in Abilene, Texas, someone called me Mr. Zigzag. So I was really into it. Watching Sammy use all the zigzag stuff yesterday just kind of lit that back up into me again. And we're going to use it in our sectioning today to accomplish an interesting result that we'll talk about when we get a little bit farther in the haircut. So here we go.
Mr. Zigzag?
She called me Mr. Zigzag. She's like, well, look at this class here, Mr. Zigzag. Something like that.
All right. I'll go with it.
Not everyone in Abilene, Texas talks that way. I'm from the South, so I tend to kind of do a Southern accent when I'm doing anybody's voice. Doesn't matter where you came from. You're going to get a Southern
accent. Just do hair, Jesse. Just do hair.
Okay. All right, buddy. Here we go. All right, so Andrew promised us an in-depth look at foundational breakdown. Now, what is foundational breakdown? You can see it up here on the board behind me. And we've been talking about it a lot all weekend. It's just a really good way to break the head into its major components that will allow you to get to most shapes. Like I've also said this weekend too, that breakdowns are merely pathways to an end result. Like if I knew one way to get to target going a certain way, I could also get to target going another way. And breakdowns are just like that, maps of the head form that we use to accomplish certain results. So foundational breakdown, we're going to start it by separating the top from the bottom of the head along what we call the vertical transition, sometimes known as the parietal ridge. You know, Andrew did a lot of research on that, and he's got some pretty funny stories about how he researched these terms and came up with the new ones that we're using now in our standardized work. So working all of the hair in the direction that I want it to go. And so instead of just carving a horizontal line across, we're going to be measuring for a certain point of reference, and that is a place where the side of the head stops and it starts to become the top. So if I place my comb on here and hold it vertically, I use 3 fingers just to brace it so it doesn't want to rock too much. If I set that there vertically and then drop a finger behind it, where it's touching the head right now is pretty much letting me know where that separation is going to take place. But I'm looking to hit it all the way around the head. Here in the crown, it gets a little bit lower. So I'm going to put my thumb there and then just chase that line over until they connect. This is a nice method for just getting the line started. Now, I like to critique these lines a little bit, so I'm just going to set this half of the top away for a moment, and we're really going to take a good look. What we're looking for here is that reference right there where it comes off the head. And where it starts to get a little bit low or too high, then we'll just correct that before we move on. Just like so. It's really good to take the time to critique your partings, because when you know you have your sections clean, the areas of the head that you cut in are going to work together so much better, and you're going to get a much more a consistent end result. I find that when I feel good about my sectioning, that the haircut goes a lot faster. So we've separated that on the one side. Let's just turn her around and go to the other. Working the same idea, taking all the hair in the direction that I want it to go. There we go. I'm bringing it back this way. Looking for that same place on the head, holding that vertically where the finger's going to touch the head right behind it. And once I find that place, we're going to draw a horizontal line. Now, once we have these two halves drawn out, we want to make sure that they connect in the way that they're supposed to. So just working both sides of this and getting that cleaned up. I'll take all of this at once. It can be a little daunting to try and work with so much hair at one time. That's why generally we'll do one half and then the other. You know, I like how Andrew was saying yesterday too, that, you know, don't stress yourself out trying to make it look perfectly the same on both sides. I saw a question there for a second and then I saw it flash away. I may have had my back to you. Sorry about that. Mr. Zigzag, the Bob Ross of foundations and haircutting. Thank you. I don't know if you mean that as a compliment, but I'll take it as one. Thanks.
It's my favorite thing that people are calling you now, Jesse. You are officially the Bob Ross of hairdressing.
Well, see, what's going to happen is I'm going to have to think and drink on that later because I watched a lot of Bob Ross as a kid. And, you know, now maybe we're discovering that there has been some like deep set influence that's happened in my life because of Bob Ross.
It's totally complimentary. Don't, yeah. Definitely complimentary.
I knew it was. I'm just joking. Okay, guys, if you're still with me, now that we have got the top section put away, the top and the crown are now isolated, moving us around the head through the so-called parietal area, or what we call the vertical transition. Now, we've been busting this move all weekend, finding that corner. Let me turn her towards you. We're going to place one comb flat against the side of the head there. I usually look for the top of the ear just to kind of set that against, and then something flat against the back of the head. You're going to get that corner. When you get that corner, bisect the line, and then draw a vertical line there. And that's going to show you where the side of the head stops and starts to become the back of the head here at this point of reference. We'll do the same thing on the other side. Why take so much time to section? You know, it really will make your confidence better. You'll find that you move a lot faster through your cuts. You know, you might spend 10 minutes sectioning something and then cut it in 5. And that's the way we do. Do you use this parting for all your haircuts? I use inspirations of it for everything. Basically, going straight to foundational breakdown will allow you to separate the head into those major components. 99% of the haircuts that I'm working on, I'm going to use some of these reference points. Either the horizontal transitions at the corners back here, which you can see here on Lydia, right in there. Or then this section here always, especially when I'm working in my long layered cut. I really do, since I've learned this to use this a lot, I really do hate now taking a big transversal section from the top of the head all the way down to the bottom. Okay, so we were going to talk about using zigzag lines in here to cut our perimeter and to take our length. It's just going to be a one length cut, so we're not really going to be looking for a lot of variance in the outer shell of the silhouette. But we are going to be looking for what's happening here at the bottom. You want to create a nice clean line. But here's one of the pitfalls that I have is that, you know, like we talked about earlier, cutting those lines to where you get one just right, you next let down the next layer. If you make a tiny boo-boo after the blowout, you're stuck in an aftercut situation. So looking for a way that we could create a way, sorry, I said way so many times, looking for a way to prevent that from happening. So we're going to start right here. I'm going to move this side out of the way, right here in the back. So we're going to zigzag parting here. I was watching Sam do this yesterday, got lit up for it all over again. I was thinking to myself, man, it's really been a long time since I've done some zigzag partings. What they do is they disrupt the line, you know, so you're taking a clearly defined space between two sections and then kind of messing it up a little bit. So a little bit from the bottom can be sent to the top. A little bit from the top might be sent to the bottom to be cut there, and so forth and so on. And what I'm thinking about this is that, you know, in the one length cut, all of the hair is being brought to the same stationary point and taken off. And that's how you get that nice heavy line. But what if we could, through zigzag partings, disrupt that perimeter a little bit to where it would show us a little more chewy texture right there at the bottom, without making us work too hard for that. You know, it can be really scary to have a beautiful one length cut and then go in and try and disrupt it by point cutting, because if you make one mistake, then you know you're going to have to go higher than that to fix it. Can use these partings for highlights also. I would say categorically, yes. I mean, you could use any form of sectioning for anything, truly. For highlights, I would say I use this to isolate myself into those areas of the head. Now, even though I work a horizontal-ish line across the side of the head, when I go in with foils, I still might attack in diagonals, but it still lets me know where I am at all times. As a colorist, I wouldn't say that I section the head off that way every time, but I could. All right, so right here, working our way into the side of the head, continuing our zigzag parting. Now, here's a very delicate area, that low density area behind the ear. So I'm gonna make sure that I drop a nice safety net of hair into that. Once again, just making sure I keep that going. So take a nice big zig right there behind that ear and make sure that area gets covered. Same thing here. Make sure I'm really generously leaving hair to the bottom. Now, so we're gonna cut this line, and we're going to create a progressive undercut as we go. So when we drop this next section down, it'll be cut slightly longer, but part of it still lives inside the previous section. So that's going to give us a little bit of disruption, a little bit of what was cut before appearing in the next section. What that's going to give us at the bottom of the haircut when we're done, instead of having like steps that get progressively longer as you move from the interior out, that we're going to see more of a diffusion between those lines, and it should be easier to go in and clean up at the end. I'm still curious if a French bob is the same thing as a regular bob. If so, how are they different? I'll confess, I'm using the term French bob as a little bit of play on words, just exploiting the term because I've seen it being used in trends a lot these days. What I'm cutting here is just a one length bob. Calling it a French bob though, because it makes it sound a lot cuter than one length bob. I've only used zigzag partings on fine hair and diagonal partings on denser hair. What would the difference be? Well, that's a tough one to answer, I guess, because what my mind is craving right now is a visual example of what you're talking about. But what I would say is when I'm working across a horizontal line by zigzagging it, what I'm doing is I'm loaning hair to each section from the other. Once again here, I want to protect this area behind the ear. Get up here and protect that as well. And I'm just looking for disruptions to be caused. Right there. If I get a little worried there and I feel like I'm right there, then just drop a little more in. Back in the day when I first started using zigzag partings, it was an inspiration to me from a lot of color blocking techniques that I was learning at that time as well. This was 2005 and 2006 when I was in school. And so in those times, we didn't really use a lot of balayage to create gradients in color. We would actually, zigzag partings or something like that, or there would be basically two sections that were colored that would mush into each other, and zigzag partings would help us do that much smoother. Would you section out that much hair to start if the hair was super thick or super thin? Just like everything we've been doing and talking about this weekend, is that adjust for what you're doing. If she has a whole lot of hair, then I might zigzag this in just one or two sections, or I might do more sections if I want to see a more gradual build out. It's really about taste level. When in doubt, I would say take a smaller section at first, because you can imagine if someone had really coarse hair and then I did one big section and another big section, the marrying point or where they come together might not be super smooth. Check this out. So once again, we're in the back of the head here. I'm going to go ahead and keep my sides put away for now. And we're going to work right here. I'm going to take another separation at the center back, just to keep these areas isolated and easy to work with. I had a clip somewhere. Oh, it's game. Well, they must all be on the head. Here we go. I'll borrow one back. All right. So working directly in front of my section, we're going to be using our blending shear to cut this off. Sammy was talking a lot yesterday about using the blending shear to complete an entire haircut. So we're going to do the same thing. Bringing this down, using the wide teeth of the comb. Fine teeth go in first to work out any tension, any little bubbles that might be in the hair, and then switch to the wide teeth and push that into right there. And then I'm going to place the still blade or the sharp blade against the skin like this, and I'll capture the hair in front of the blade. And what happens is when I make my cut, it allows the shear to reopen because the spine of the comb is making sure that that hair isn't moving away. So I'm just going to make a few chomps until all that hair comes off. What I like about using the blending shear to create heavy lines, Sammy showed me this, is that it's going to create just the tiniest little bit of texture on the ends right there. Question is, do you keep the guest head upright or chin forward? Generally, if I'm cutting wet, I'm going to keep their head upright, just because when it's upright, it's letting me know how they're living. When I stretch it down, it's going to reveal the stuff that hangs out underneath. If I'm cutting wet, then I'll usually have them stay up straight. If I'm cutting dry hair, we might have them tilt forward. Here's the reason why. In the wet hair, sometimes I feel like I'm not getting the full story visually. You know, it might be that I could take off some hair that I would wish I hadn't later. So if I can definitely see, as in the case with dry hair, if I can definitely see what needs to go and what needs to stay, then I might go ahead and have it tilt forward. Thanks for your question. Thank you all for your questions. Wide teeth going in, blade against the skin, and then make your cut.
Hey, Jesse.
Yeah.
I think there's still a little confusion on how come the zigzag partings versus just going ahead and taking just straight horizontal partings. Can you
gotcha. Okay.
clarify
Yeah,
that?
some of us had picked up later. Okay, so the reason we did the zigzag partings was because, I guess I might have to explain it a little bit. I like to think a lot about hair cutting and different ways that I can help myself not get painted into corners in the salon. So always thinking about whenever I go in to cut a one-length bob, generally I'm going to take nice laser line horizontal sections and I let it down and I cut it clean, taking down the neck section, let it down and cut it clean. But what happens is because the line was so clean, so also will be the distinctions between the 2 or 3 or 4 subsections, however many you might have, when you go back and look at the haircut after it's dry. A lot of times I would find that I would look underneath my haircut and I would just see all of this junk living there, or like obvious step marks and stuff. So let me pop her out of the way for a second and I'll get a little light on her. With this, because we use the blending shear, I don't know if you can see what's going on underneath there, but it definitely has a little bit more softness to it. And I'm just doing this to help myself avoid that crazy step effect at the bottom of the layers. It's a little bit esoteric, but if you do a lot of one-length bobs, this is probably something you're going to think about at some point. Okay, moving on to the side here. Just using the zigzag partings to disrupt the perimeter. You know, when we use zigzag partings in a layered cut, we see the textured effect of that in the layers. You know, it'll kind of chops them up for us a little bit. But since all of this hair is being brought to a stationary guide and being cut, then we're only going to be able to measure that visual effect when we get underneath the perimeter and look at that blocky broomstick area that's going on underneath. All right, once with the fine teeth, coming back with the wide teeth now. Now here's a personal choice. For most of my guests, when I want it to look like one length, I will give it just a tiny little tip forward. What I discover with a lot of people is that they will live with their jaw slightly up when they walk. And so if it's cut totally level, sometimes that cut looks like it tips backwards and builds a little bit more heaviness towards the back. So not a lot of tilt, just a skosh. Oh yeah, thanks for calling that out. This is one of my favorite shears, our reversible blending shear. I do whole haircuts with it. When we were doing the razor segment yesterday, we talked about you know, faking razor effects with a blending shear, and this one is definitely one of my favorites for this. We're going to be giving one of those away today at the end of this segment. So if you're seeing anything that lights you up, if you're seeing something that you think that you could use behind the chair in your world, then this is definitely the shear that I'm using for this. All right, right here. Getting down nice and low. In the salon, I might use a cutting chair. Some lingerers might be left. Don't let it stress you. We'll be able to go back and get them in the end. What's great about it is that the line is set and we can definitely see what doesn't belong. Okay. We're going to drop down our next section. I've been doing a lot of these one-link bobs lately. People have been coming in and asking for them again. Apparently there's some celebrities now who are taking this haircut and showing it off and making it look good. So that kind of precision or the ability to cut accurately all the way around the head is can be very challenging, especially if you work in a busy salon that's distracting. I find myself, if I'm doing something dead serious like that, I usually won't let my guests talk to me. Do we release tension over the ears? At the time that we're cutting the hair, Kelly, we're using the wide teeth of the comb, so there shouldn't be a lot of tension happening at that time. So here is our parting that we made at the vertical transition, and we're going to confuse that just as well. So we know that we want to keep this nice and firm at the bottom, so we don't want to dip too far into the underneath. So I'm taking my comb and just kind of holding it like a pencil. And if I want to scoop a little hair down, I'll roll it over so the teeth are down and go in and just kick the end of it into the hair and then pull back out. And what you're going to see is a nice little point appear. Same thing right here. For this section that we have on the side of the head, because we borrowed so much of it to send to the bottom, I think I'm just going to let it ride and we'll send all of this down section by section. You know, this is a little bit different than just kind of zigzagging your way across the head. It's a little bit more discriminate. You know, there's some segments that you can find out there on our YouTube of using zigzag partings to help us affect how layers play with each other too. There's lots of stuff you can do with them. And like I said before, my primary inspiration was out of color techniques, so great for color too. All right, just dropping this down as I move all the way around the head. You know, how big or how narrow your zigzags are will make a difference. If you want something that's very soft and diffused, then you'll want to make your zigzags very long and vertical and right next to each other. If you don't mind a little bit of a chunkier texture explosion, then go ahead and make them loud and proud. Big zigs, big zags. Whatever works for you. Coming around the head. All right. Can you use a regular thinning shear? Absolutely. Just a friendly word of advice, I would say, you know, call it a blending shear and not a thinning shear. If you say that in front of someone who feels like they have thin hair, you may only exacerbate an idea that they're carrying around. But yeah, you could use any blending shear for this. Ours has 42 teeth. You know, we refer to it as a hair cutting scissor. Now, if it has less teeth, then you're just going to be there a little bit longer. You can even do this with our Invisablend that promises not to make any lines in the hair, but if you camp out with it in one place long enough and just chomp, chomp, chomp away, you will get a clean line that is slightly textured on the ends. All right, going to move her back into place and brace her up so you all can see. Here's what we're getting now. Dropping this hair into place, we can see the hair that lives right behind it. So we're just going to resection ourselves and keep that plan going like we have been right there at the corners, the horizontal transition. Going to put those sides away for a moment. Hopefully you guys have been having a great time this weekend. We were talking as a group last night and we were all just blown away at how many people had come and stayed for everything. And that was really admirable because that was a long day. So thank you all for your enthusiasm and for your excitement. It only feeds our excitement. We give more and so much better when we know that somebody out there wants to see it. So thanks. What's up, bud?
They were getting quite a few questions on hair density, like what hair textures and density this might be best for. Is it good for fine hair? Is it good for thick hair? So maybe you could share with them, yeah, just a little bit about different hair densities.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. It just, the things that we know about those densities already would be the same knowledge that we carry through. So to answer that question, if it's very coarse hair, then you may want to just be careful about it, because if I go too deep with those zigs and zags, then it may want to pop that hair off too much. If it's fine hair, then I can be a little bit bolder with my stroke and show off that texture a little bit. Just maybe emphasize the blunter line. I may find that I don't want to use the blender on her ends, because if she already has fine hair and I'm using a tool that gives a soft touch, then on the ends, especially where we want a feeling of firmness, then this might not be the tool. So we know that on coarse hair or extremely fine hair, or I'm just going to say hair extremes, that we don't do certain things like over texturize. So razor cutting, using the blending shear is just something that you'd want to be careful about. I try not to make definitive answers like do this or don't do that, because I just don't believe in that. Try it, just be careful. All right, wide teeth coming in. Now, what I don't want to do here is push this hair against the head, because it's just going to exaggerate how much it's being undercut. What I want to do is bring it out where it's going to live, which is going to be here, and then come a little bit past my guide, and then make another clean line. Oops. Using the wide teeth of my comb to not put a lot of tension on. There's one that hangs right there. Sammy will pull that right off if he was here, but I'll be nice. I'll go back and cut it. Moving my way over to the next parting. This is on the other side of center back before this horizontal transition. It's going to bring that towards me a little bit. Trying to get as close as I can for you guys. Wide teeth go in, and I want this to be right about where it's going to live. And then once I'm set, I'll make my cut. A little bit past the previously cut section. Is that little guy? Awesome. Give her a little tug test to make sure that both sides are the same. What's great about using foundational breakdown on a cut like this is that I've cut the back. Before I move my way into the sides, I can check right here at these two horizontal transitions and make sure that the hair feels the same length. If it was way off and there was a mistake that needed to be corrected, I know, stay right here, fix it before you move on. And that's one of the great things about sectioning. All right, moving over here to the side. She's starting to dry out just a little bit, so I'm going to grab some hydration for her. All right. You know, if you guys haven't already, make sure that you give Mr. Andrew Carruthers some love for, you know, he's been presenting segments himself, and then every single moment otherwise, he's been taking care of us and making sure that we have everything that we need. So, you know, if you're out there and you're watching, just know that Mr. Andrew Carruthers is behind the scenes right now, making sure that everything goes smoothly for me so I don't have to worry about it. I didn't see you, bro. I love you, man. Taking those cuts. All right. Just give it a little blouse there and make sure how it looks. Can the zigzag be uneven, or should it all be clean and precise? That's the fun part, is that make it uneven, make it precise. They're all going to give you different results. So if you wanted to see, you know, precise results in your silhouette or in the perimeter, then the more precise you are in the zigzags, the more easily spottable that those things are going to be. With mine, the reasons I chose the zigs and the zags that I did were really just about where I want to see density and where I want to see disruption in that perimeter. And like I said, because it's all one length, you're only going to be able to measure what's happening when you get under here and have a look at what's going on there. And like I showed on the benchmarks, what we can see is that there's a really nice, just sort of easy disruption happening, but it's not too aggressive and you don't see too many steps happening underneath. All right, let's get over to this side. I don't want us to run out of time before we finish this. Been having a lot of fun these days cutting around someone's natural parting. You know, it's always been something that I've taught, you know, but as an aside, like we do a nice haircut, you know, standard by the books, and then by the end we'd be like, what if she has a natural parting over here? Here's what we do. So doing that and building it into the cut before we go after it, I'm having a lot of success behind the chair with it. Just know that if you're going to cut a parting into somebody's hair, or if you're going to cut the hair in such a way that it commits them to a parting, make sure that you let them know in no uncertain language that they are going to always have to part their hair there. Otherwise, the haircut is going to look a little bit off. All right, last little bit here in the front. Bringing the shear behind the hair, kind of tucking it up into the teeth of the comb. Oop, got someone hiding out there. Get off of that. All right. Wide teeth of the comb. Tap the hair up into the teeth because we're looking at the spine of the comb there to keep the hair from pushing away from us as the blade is banging against it from the other side. Right there. The teeth push the hair towards the blade, and the blade makes the cut. All right, give her a little tug test here. Make sure it's the same length. Oh God, I always get so nervous when I do this cut in front of people because if it's not the same, what am I gonna do? Have to recut it. There we go. All right, letting down the top now. And before we do that, I'm gonna lower her just a bit, and she's as tall as I am right now. And we're going to talk about where we can put this parting. So she's going to wear her parting just off to the left. You know, hot tip for you guys at home, if you're using pivot point mannequins, I've discovered, and some people have agreed with me, that they really do prefer to part on the left-hand side. Sometimes if I part her on the other side, the follicle direction seems to point that way, and it'll want to kind of push back into her face. So if you want to have a success story, part them on the left side. They seem to like it better that way. Okay, so we set a parting right there, letting all of these sections come back into place. Let's raise her back up and get back to work. All right. Putting everything in natural fall, and then we're going to resection the part of foundational breakdown that's left for us, which is those corners. Horizontal transition takes place right there where the head stops being the side and starts becoming the back. Could you razor the zigzag sections for layered movements? Yes, absolutely. And that's one of my big mantras is that, you know, sectioning, and planning brings us to the place where the almost inconsequential part, the hair removal, takes place. You know, so if you zigzag your partings and you plan them for specific reasons and you know what they're going to accomplish, you create your sections, and then finally, at the end, we take the hair off. You know, so at that point, it's, what am I doing to that end? Am I making it nice and clean with a shear? Am I giving it a nice diffused edge with a razor? Am I slide cutting, doing something in between with a blending shear, flamethrower? What is it? You know, so however you take that hair off is up to you. But in hair cutting, as we see it, the hair doesn't come off until the plan has been accomplished, until the sections have been done. And we know before we cut what's going to happen. Awesome questions. Thank you guys so much. I always end up with my left side longer, not sure why. Why? Do you have a tip or hack to assure this doesn't happen? It happens to me too. And what I've discovered for myself, a lot of times it happens in the way that I push the hair when I'm cutting it. You know, if I'm working away this way, the hair is going to want to push in that direction. A lot of times we don't change direction. We'll be cutting on the side that we're strong on, right-handed cutter. Here I go. I'm coming around the edge. I hit center back. So right now when I cut, every time I close with the shear, it's pushing the hair this way a little bit. I hit the center back and it just keeps going. So if I'm coming around to the left-hand side with a shear that, you know, whatever, maybe isn't in optimum condition and it is pushing that hair just a little bit without even noticing, sometimes it'll want to push a little bit longer to that side. That's what happens to me. It might be what happens to you. I've been seeing a lot on, or I've been talking a lot on changing the direction that we're moving the shear and the entry angle of the shear itself into your subsection and the influence that it provides. We can't go into that right now, but we'll make a video on it sometime, I'm sure, if we haven't already. All right, last cuts here. Bringing this down, making sure that I'm not pushing it into the head too much, which would exaggerate my undercut a bit, and then drawing past the section and making my cut. Working with our 6-inch reversible blender, which is just a badass hair cutting shear in of itself. Sorry. All right, here, working our way. You know, with the blending shear, I've discovered that I don't have to nitpick so much about which way I'm entering with the shear because its cuts are kind of unilateral. They don't push one way or the other. they're going to just trap the hair and take it off. And like Sammy says, go side to side with your blender to get everything in motion. Working our way over here now. We've just got a few minutes left, you guys. If you have any last minute questions, go ahead and fire them off as I cut these last couple bits. Last one coming down here. We're on the side of the head now, and I can see my previously cut sections. I just want to push them out to me. And then when I see them, my guide go past, I can make my cut. Bringing her forward here. So now what do we do with this bit of hair that has to travel all the way from the natural parting? You know, this is a trick that I learned from my buddies over at Redken, you know, that if you comb it across, you know, to where it's going to live, that's where you want to make the cut. You know, might even want to take a clip there and isolate that into the one place. You know, all the grain of the hair moving in the same direction, moving parallel and not being overlapped or forced over the top. Okay, one side done. We'll turn her around this way now and finish the cut. These cuts can be so much fun. Just looking up information on the French bob and its origins and how it got started. You know, it's seen a lot of different labels over the years. That's why I don't get tied up too much into the label. You know, we call it a French bob. Some people call it a lob. Some people call it a blunt lob. You know, we use the terms that we're familiar with. Don't get too tied up on what you call it. Call it whatever you want. Make up a name for it yourself. Take enough pictures of it and get enough people to agree with you, and it'll become that new thing. All right, last couple cuts right here. Thank you all who have joined us for this weekend. Can't tell you how important it has been to all of us to know that, you know, even though we got shut down and we can't make it to the shows, that people are still hungry for education and still want to hear what we have to say. Make sure also that you remember the specials that we have going on. Great deals for everything, and 10% of all of our sales will go to the COVID-19 Relief Fund. So here we go. This gives us our one length bob, but it's a nice little bit of texture towards the bottom. You can see where that wants to break up a little bit already. And I'm going to bring the benchmark back, who's been blown out for us, and we'll talk about her just one more second. You know, so what we get here is this nice clean result. And I'm going to bring her in really tight to the computer. Hopefully the light's good enough. Is that you can see this bit of choppiness right there. But what we don't get is the steps that sometimes we can get from one horizontal section, two horizontal section, three horizontal section, and cut. You know, so when we get that diffusion at the bottom, it's just going to make this handle a little bit better and have a nice swing on its own. Thank you guys so much for watching. Andrew, you still hanging? You're not on mute, are you? Make it big again, one more time.
Just kidding.
Okay. There it is. Now get over here. Someone's got to get a clipper.
This is what I love about our team. It's all good. It's all fun and games, right?
That's actually all I've been thinking about all weekend was like, yeah, we got content and haircuts we got to do, but how am I going to get Andrew to do that thing where he gets really big and I get really little?
Okay, so that's what you've been spending your time on. Great.
I did. I know. I wore a tie, you know.
All right, so we have a winner for your contest.
Yes. I want to know who won that wonderful scissor.
So kind of cool too. She's actually a manager at an Ulta, and we have a great relationship with the crew at Ulta. But I wanted to read you guys what she sent us in her text. She said, "Please know that this has been a highlight during all this social distancing and quarantine. I appreciate all the education. Been a hairstylist for 30 years. Love the industry more and more every day." Pretty cool, huh? And her name is Cassie Beretta from New York City.
Nice. Congratulations, Cassie. I hope you love that shear as much as I do. I know you will.
Yeah, we use and abuse those shears, and I did notice there was a couple of questions on how long a shear should last and stuff. And guys, you know, if you're buying quality equipment and you're taking good care of it, which means always sending it back to the factory recommended sharpening. I mean, the tools will last you forever, really. Like if you're having to buy new shears every couple of years, I'm wondering what you're doing with your shears.
Well, I actually asked one of our sharpeners about that one time, and what they told us was that there's a difference between sharpening and honing and then what they call polishing. So if you're sending your shear back with regularity, I do mine once a quarter, you don't have to, but if you send them back with regularity, then they're able to, what they call polish, using a mild abrasive to bring the edge back. But if you've been banging it around long enough to where it's got nicks, that's when they have to file down past that to get past to a new edge. And that's why you sometimes hear an old cat that's been doing hair a long time talk about, I've had these shears forever, they're so pointy now. Because they've just been sharpened and sharpened and sharpened over the years. My shears got so short, they're the best.
They point cut better that way.
I can get right around that ear now that I treated them like crap for all these years.
Jesse, maybe we should do a video where we talk about all the sayings and the things that people say in the hair industry that we're like,
oh my God, I could write a book.
All right. Well, thank you so much, dude. We'll have you back up here at 6:15 for your request hour.
Oh yeah, if you guys are still watching, please come with some stuff that we can work on. I've really got like half the segment planned. I'm looking for you guys to bring me some good questions, some stuff that I can cut hair about. So things that you might have asked during the segment that didn't get answered by anybody, bring them to the segment. I'll answer them. Andrew will be there with me too if I can't handle it. It'll be awesome.
And I'm up next in half an hour for texturizing and detailing. And we're going to leave you guys with a little message from our friends at Cosmetologist Chicago.
Hey everybody, this is Karen Gordon, owner of J. Gordon Designs and president of Cosmetologist Chicago. I'm in my home office today with Jean Shrimpton looking over my shoulder. Hey, I just want to take a minute to say, I know this is tough for everybody, but we're going to get through this, and let's get through it stronger as an industry, not weaker. Let's use this time creatively and productively to figure out what it's going to look like on the other side once we all go back to work. I personally am working on a homecoming. How am I going to make it special for not only my team, but for my clients when they come home to my salon? But I want it to be extra special. So start thinking, start gearing up, because we are going to have that day when we're all back, and we need to enter it with a positive attitude. So just want to say I miss you all. Be healthy, be strong, and I look forward to our next reunion. Thanks. Bye.